aspirants, looking at the Hindu analysis for 9th of October 2018. So these are the important news items to what has been picked up from the Hindu newspaper. Let's look at them in detail. The first one, so here we have the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences. So two people have got their Nobel Prizes. One is Mr. William, another one is Mr. Paul. And here is the details to what they have got it. One is for the green tax. So this particular green carbon tax was being introduced, and here we have the ideas which has been driven growth with respect to R&D, that's a research and development. So based on these peers, and they were talking about how the people are being contributing on to the greenhouse gases and how it can be reduced in the near futures. So based on these sustainable futures, what the two eminent personalities have received the awards, that's in the prize. So I can just look on to them, this would be more than sufficient. And the next one, the Supreme Court taxed the Tripura NRC plea with the Assam case. So this case is with respect to the NRC, the National Register of Citizens, where we just finished for Assam. But right now, the Supreme Court had issued a notice to the government with respect to the public interest litigation to update the NRC in Tripura as well. So because this is with respect to detect and also deport the illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. So here, this is another area where the illegal migrants have been entering into the nation, and here now the concern is that the Tripura also wanted to start up with the NRCs, and they were saying that this particular people who have been coming out and being taking a residence part in there, so they're creating an external aggression in the places to what they live. So this is not the good thing to be done. This is one of the important aspects to what one of the petitioner has been talking about. And here the basic information, what basis they want the NRC on Tripura is that, so here the petition has asked to direct the authorities to update with the terms of the rules 3 and 4 of the citizenship, registration of citizens and issue of the national identity card rules of 2003. So this area, so what we just read about the citizens re-registration of the issue and also the national identity cards rules 2003, this becomes important for your preliminary exam. So the questions what they ask is that, so recently the NRC was being added up in Tripura as well, on what basis they were being added on what are the rules they actually followed on. So you should know that it is a citizenship registration part of it, and they are saying that from the July 19 to 1948 they have to take it as a cut-off date, and this is to be provided in Article 6 of the Constitution, which deals with the citizenship chapter. Under that Article 6, based on that you can do up with these particular aspects is what the petition has asked the court to direct to also have the NRCs in the Tripuras. So you have the basic details to what it is. So earlierly the princely state of the Tripura was merged with the Indian Union on October 15, 1949, and it attained the statehood in 1972. And after that you have the informations here. So earlierly there was one kind of an agreement which was being undergone by the East Bengal, West Bengal and Assam and Tripura, that's called as Nehru-Liaquat Agreement, which was on April 8, 1950. So after that this particular aspects that happened, and after that there was a lot of illegal immigrants who have been entering into the nations, and based on all these things from 1948 onwards they're telling it to take it as a cutoff, and we would be able to segregate the people from us and also the foreign people. So as we discussed, the main contentions or content to why they have to inform of the petition was the influx of the illegal migrants who have been amounted to the external aggression under 355 of the Constitution. So here they were talking about these presence of illegal migrants are actually violating the political rights of the citizens of the Tripuras. So the political rights to what the Tripuran citizens have to get has been completely violated by these illegal migrants, and this is something where it is uncontrolled influx of the illegal migrants to what has been happening, and it is changing the demography of the Tripura as well. And this Tripura was predominantly a tribal state, but now it has become as a non-tribal state because its people, once who were called as a majority, they have become the minority people in Britain. So those set of people who belong to the Tripura, originally those people have been completely become a minority, wherein the other people from different areas, they become the majority out here. So this is one of the concerns to why they wanted an NRC to happen in Tripura as well. So right now the Supreme Court had issued an order as well to the government to look on to the issues and start updating with the NRCs of Tripuras. The next news item, the 3 petitions challenge Sabrimala ruling in Supreme Court. So we were seeing with the Sabrimala verdict what the Supreme Court had given, because this is the 2-year-old PIL, that's a public interest petition which was being filed by the Indian Young Lawyers Association. So this was challenging on the prohibition of the women who was aged between 10 and 15 from undertaking the pilgrimage. So now we know that the Supreme Court had given a landmark judgment on this particular aspects, and this is now being reviewed. In sense, the three petitioners, they are asking the Supreme Court to review the petition, review the judgment on what is being given on September 28th, where it started allowing the women of all ages to enter the Sabrimala temple. So now the three petitions, though the government said that we will not be interfering and we will also follow to what the Supreme Court is given as a verdict, but here the three petitions have been filed to review the petition, in sense the judgment to what the Supreme Court has made it on the women who have to enter to the Sabrimala temples. So there is one important move to what has been happening, and the grounds why the Supreme Court had to uplift the prohibition of the women is because here the sole reason was based on the menstrual status. That's a cycle. So this is like something where the individual's dignity has been questioned a lot. So based on this is what the Supreme Court upheld it and said that this is not the way to what it has to be done, and you have to allow the women to enter into the Sabrimala temple, and talking about the different constitutional rights which has been given irrespective of their genders. So this is one important aspect. And there's another society called Nair Service Society. So this was a review petition which was been filed by the senior advocates, and here the contention was that they wanted a judicial notice that an overwhelming large section of the women worshippers, so we're not talking about the men, women worshippers are supporting the custom of prohibiting of females between the age of 10 to 50 years at the Sabrimala temple. So here the point is that the women supporters are there in prohibiting of the women into the Sabrimala temple. They themselves are welcoming. So they're asking, why did you lift the ban such of it? So it is a very good move, and let it continue the same way. So this is one of the important aspect to what the Nair society is trying to put forth before the Supreme Court in terms of the petition part. So this is about it. Just that a petition has been coming out right now. That's it. And the next news item, 2 Indian oil PSUs place orders for the Iranian crude. So these issues we have been repeatedly seeing with respect to the US imposing the sanctions on the Katsa. So here any country having any kind of a deal with North Korea, Russia and Iran, they would be having an imposition of the Katsa. But now two Indian state-run oil companies, they have placed an order for the Iranian oil. So this has been one of the important aspects where they're asking to deliver it by November. So this was a message which has been coming from the petroleum minister. So here we know that, as we just discussed, the US sanctions has been targeting on the Iran's crude oil as well. But right now they have placed an order for the delivery as well. And here the Indian government has been repeatedly requesting them to take out or waiver out the sanctions to what the US has been imposing on India, but definitely from Washington there's no such kind of an information which has been coming. The question right now is that whether have they given us a waiver or not. So have we been granted with a waiver or we are not being granted with a waiver. So we are still in a dynamic situation, but still here the two Indian oil companies have gone and they've placed the orders with the Iranian oils. So this is about it. And the next one, just 8.3 polling for local bodies in Kashmir Valley. So here the Kashmir was undergoing with the urban local bodies elections. So in the year 2011 there was almost like 81% of the turnout people who had come for the entire sort of an elections to what had happened in the panchayat polls, but here it is just 56.7%. So most of the areas they only saw the single digits of the elections where the people were turning out to cast their vote, but moreover the situations in election periods was calm enough, but still the turnout in terms of phases of the local urban bodies was very far less to what it is to be compared on. So here you have the numbers, so I can just skip them. Just know that the pollings are not happening well. So this is about it. And the next news item, UN report, India faces a threat of deadly heat waves. So this with respect to the average global temperature which has been rising by 1 degree Celsius from the present, and here is India with almost having an expected conditions where it had saw almost 2,000 people who have been killed by heat waves in 2015. So they're saying that this is one of the important report which has been coming from the special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, which was being commissioned by the IPCC. That's an Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And this is an area to what the aspirants has to look on for, because UPSC preliminary examination, they'll ask you all these aspects. So from environment, these sort of questions talking about like Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, when it started, who are the dignitaries on that, these are the questions which would be likely on your preliminary exam, so just focus on this. and this was a report which was being authored by 91 authors and reviewed edition with respect to 40 countries. So here you have the details with respect to it, and you should know there was one important agreement in Paris which was held in 2015. It's called as in Paris Agreement. Here they came up with a landmark achievement where they wanted the world to agree to keep the temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius. But here that was the main concept, and they wanted to put efforts to limit the temperature increase 1.5 degree above the pre-industrial efforts levels. So this was one of the efforts to what they have to look on. But as we know that US has been actually withdrawn from this accord right now, and it's not been part of the 2015 Paris Agreement. So now this report they're saying is that here they have to cap the rise in the temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The time they don't do it, which means that there's a high need of the hour that we have to reduce it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we have to cap it at that particular time, otherwise the things would be better, otherwise the things might become worse as well. So this is one of the important rapid and far reaching what they have to do is transitions in the land, energy, industry, building, transport and the cities. So now the CO2 has to fall down as most as 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, and it has to be a net zero by 2050. So if we don't get this the balance by removing the carbon dioxide, that the things and the climatic conditions and also the drastic weather changes would be the very important aspects, and most of the people would be moving on to the poverty line. So this is what they're trying to focus here, that here India has been again with the alarming signs with respect to the 1.5 degrees Celsius as it's getting raised. So this is about it. And next one, poll contestants should declare the health status, the High Court. So here we have the Madras High Court, which is now making a very strong intention on mandating the health conditions of any of the contestants who has been contesting for the parliamentary, state legislative assemblies or the local bodies. They have to make those particular details about their health condition. So here they also justified that when people are being able to make on the criminal antecedents, why not on the health? So on this limelight he took an example of the Chief Minister Jayalalitha, where after assuming the office by 7 months she almost expired. So this is because where the personalities, the people, they have to know that, so is this particular person whom I am electing for the next 5 years to be the leader or representative on behalf of me, is he being fit enough to run the government and what have been appointed him for. So this becomes very important, where they have to show the health condition. If the health condition is not there, then which means that the things might not fall onto the place. So this was one best example to what the Madras High Court has put it on Jayalalitha. And he also said that you have to look on to the things and ensure that the things fall in place. But here Mr. Counsel Niranjan Rajagopalan, he said that actually the law, in sense the election commission did not have the empower or did not have any power to force the candidates to declare their health conditions. And here the High Court said that, the Madras High Court, you cannot expect the lawmakers to make the laws, because obviously they will not be doing, because it's a disqualification to what they are framing for themselves. So what they have to do is, the need of the hour is that they have to do up with the proactive steps in this particular regard and try to inhabit this into the election commission and ensure that the health conditions has to be made mandatory and all the people they have to ensure it. And he was also talking about Mr. Session, who was a former chief election commissioner, that's a chief election commissioner, because he has brought n number of electoral reforms during his tenure, and those reforms were completely appreciable, and here they're wanting others also to do the same thing, so that a good practices can be brought under the election commission. And he said that now, that's a Mr. Rajgopalan, that there is a counter affidavit which is being filed by the ECI, which is being present in terms of a writ petition, and here they're saying they don't feel it to be appropriate to insist declaring the health conditions of the candidates. So they're saying that this might involve the right of the privacy of the individuals. So this was a concern to what the election commission had it. And here we have the chief electoral officer, Mr. Satya Bharta. He made a counter affidavit. So in this they were said that it is not to be the course of the action to invoke the powers. This has been conferred under the Article 324 of the Constitution. And issue of any guidance is considered the gravity of the subject and implications of the privacy. So this is again a kind of a justification to what is being coming from the Chief Election Commission of India, to ensure that if at all we move off in such aspects, what is the problems and associated deterioration might happen as per the articles. So this is about it. And the next one, study throws light on the megalithic site. So here we have the megalithic site, which is a research group of Yogi Vemanna universities in Kadapa. They have found it and they have come across like 18 dolomite sits. So it is actually the burial places. So this is actually been surrounded by the slab circles on a big granite, which is a hill which is locally called as Pandu Varaguddam. And here the megalithic site was being recorded almost about 2 decades ago, and this has been remained unattended. So none of them have made any detailed study on it, or it is not been brought onto the limelight as of now. And the antiquity of the site is to be estimated to be as 500 BC. So it's almost like 500 BC is what we have it, and you should know that it has different types of megalithic structures. One is mendres, that is a freestanding stone. Secondly, we have the dolmens, which is a stone tables and also the corridors. So we are discussing actually about the constructions of the various megalithic sites. And thirdly, we have the cromlech, which is an arched stone, which has a shape of an arch constructions, and alignments where there is a stone rows which is being kept, or the stone circles which is being made of. So these kind of an site is what we call it as a megalithic site with respect to different kinds of constructions in written. But right now we have seen with the second one, that is the dolomite cyst. So this is about it. So this is part of your history. So any questions might be pertinently coming out here. This is about it. And next one, Amit worker exodus Rupani assures the safety. So here actually there was an attack which was broke in 6 districts in Gujarat because of the rape of a toddler, which was been allegedly done, and after that there were 20,000 migrants who went back to their state. Now this violence was against the migrant workers who were coming from Bihar, UP and Madhya Pradesh. So after this incident, 20,000 people have gone back to their country. So now just going back is not an issue, but this has put an effect to the industries where they were being completely dependent on the labor forces, because we know there's a lot of migrations happening with respect to the employment and also not getting a proper facilities back in their states. So this is one of the areas to what they're saying is that now the people who have been recruited there to be as a labor force have been moving out because of the incidents to what has been happening out there, and this is actually affecting the industries there. So here the Rupani, Mr. Chief Minister of the Gujarat, he has mentioned that they are committed to maintain the law and order, and the kind of in trouble to what the people, the migrants have been facing from Gujarat would be reduced at the earlier, and the security would be given to them in return. And if there's anything as a problematic, they can give a call to the concerned authorities and they will be deploying there to help them in the return part. And apart from that, the Industries Association in Gujarat, they will also may ensure that the safety of workers has to be maintained because it is affecting their production. And if the production has been affected, which means that the problems also will not be sorted out of the earliest. And Mehsana, Imantnagar and also the Sanad industrial estates, so they are actually see the several migrant workers who have been returned home, so they don't have workers to work out there. So this has become a concern right now. And one more thing is that on September 24, 2018, the Chief Minister was also insisting to make a law and make it mandatory for industries to hire 80% of the locals. So after seeing lot many situations with rapes and migrant and the production which has been affecting, now there would be more emphasis to ensure that 80% of the jobs are being given to the local Gujaratis itself, so they don't have to take it from the different state, and the problems may not be happening from different states as well. So this is about the entire issue. And the next one, BrahMos engineer held with ISS links. So here we have Mr. Agrawal. His full name is Nishant Agrawal. So he is one of the person who has been awarded as a young scientist award by the DRDO. So this person has been under the charges right now because he's been part of the BrahMos Aerospace Private Limited Center in Nagpur, and he was being arrested on the aspects of illegally possessing a high sensitive and the secret documents. So he had an illegal possessing and high sensitive documents in his personal computer, and they're suspecting that he might have transmitted all the confidential data to the Pakistan ISIS. So this is one important aspect. And now they were also talking about 10 anti-terror teams of UP and Maharashtra are the one who arrested him as a joint operation. And they also found that he was in touch with the 2 Pakistani based Facebook profiles, and now they are looking on to get the interactions of these 2 peoples in detail and understand too what is the issues all about. But as far the things are being concerned right now, which proves to be that he has been in connections with the ISIS, but still the investigation has to go on. They have taken him to the custody right now, and they would be able to give the complete information to what is the problem associated with this particular person. So this is about it. So we know that BrahMos missile, which India has been working on it. So this is about it. And next one, alarming portents from global warming report. So this is again the same thing to what we were discussing about it. Say the coastal nations and agriculture economics like India, they might be affected worst because there is a decline in the crop yields, unprecedented climatic extremes, and also the increased susceptibility. This has actually pushed the poverty by several millions by 2050. By the time we attain the 2050 year, which means that most of the people would be pulled or pushed towards the poverty line because of the decline in the crop yields, the climate extremes, and also the increased susceptibility. And here you should know that India hasn't made any scientific contribution in the terms of modeling the possible climate change because its impacts to its agriculture, monsoon and urban dwellings to this report, but it gave a very critical inputs to scientific basis which has been underlining on these particular assessments. So even here there is like 1.0 degrees Celsius is a little over warming, but if it has been battered, it might definitely move on to the worst climatic extremes. And here it is a clear situation that 1.5 degree is going to be worsened, and anything more than that would be completely not been accepted by the people. So a new report, which is, as we discussed, it was from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has served as a final warning that they have to work together and ensure that quick and immediate action has to be taken to tackle the climatic situations. So this is about it. And the next major discussions would be happening in December, that is in Poland, quota-wise. So this is like one of the important rules to what they have to implement on the Paris Agreement, which happened in the 2015. So 2015 Paris Agreement is important, IPCC is important, and know about the degrees of the Celsius, what it has to be maintained and what might become as a more severe challenging aspects if it has been getting crossing more. This is about it. And the next one, Supreme Court pulls up the RBI as banks to go slow on lowering the interest rates. So here the Supreme Court has actually directed the RBI to come up with a decision on the representation that the banks are actually delaying passing on the benefits to what it has to lower the interest rates, and there is loans where the people have been taken in the name of the floating interest rate. So the problem now is the RBI has asked the banks to lower the interest rate, but the banks have not passed this benefit to the people. Now there was one of the petition which was being filed by the Money Life Foundation one. They filed a petition alleging that the banks have not been transmitting. Now the RBI is being communicated to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is giving a direction to the RBI telling that within 6 weeks you have to communicate to the foundation of the petitioner who has been filed on it, and this is a area where they have to come up with the solutions at the earliest. And here the court also has given the free hand for the people who have been given with a petition, saying that if they are not satisfied with the measures to what the RBI has been taken on the limelight of the lowering the interest rate, they can again walk back to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court would be able to help them to what it has to be done on. And here the people they were talking about, they were being left with no opportunities or chance or choice. They had to go to the court and fight it with the courts because none of the eminents were really able to help them in lowering with the interest rate. So this is about it. So this is just an information and the current updates to what has been happening in the banking sector. The next one, United States should stop misguided actions, says the China. So this is with respect to the US Secretary Mr. Mike and also the Chinese counterpart in Beijing. They had the exchange of talks. They were blaming to one another. At that point of time, the China had to say that the US has to stop the erotic over trade tensions. So this is after the tit and tat tariffs to what was happening between the billions of dollars of American and Chinese goods which was being imposed on. So after that they exchanged the talk, and he was telling that the US should stop such misguided actions because here the two countries have to look on for the settlement of the problem and not to create the conflict and the confrontation. So the exchange of talks happened on. So this is not that important, but just get to know that what are the things might happen once there is an impose of a sanction is being done. So that's about it. And next one, October starts with a heavy FPI selling. So here we have a continuous depreciation in Indian rupee, and you know it's like 74 rupees right now, and there's an overall risk aversion which has been emerging towards the markets and which has made the foreign portfolio investors of the Indian equity market with a current month which is witnessing an outflow in excess of 12,000 crore in the 5 trading sessions. And here the sole reason is that the record fall in the Indian rupee, which has been combined with the overall weakness in the emerging equity market with the rising interest rates in the US acting as a catalyst. So these are the main important aspects to why the situation is being getting worse. And here they were also saying that the rise in the interest rate with the US market has actually in the investing emerging markets has made it less attractive, and current situation of the rates in US is about 3.2% at the multi-year high. So this is one of the aspects to what they're saying about to how it might affect the emerging markets with less attractiveness. And the single largest factor is about the Indian rupee, which has been following, and this is one of the area to why it has been talking about the foreign flows in the Indian market. And now what they have to look on is that if this situation, if it continues to be the same, then the amount of stability what they have to look on would not be brought in the near future. So what they are expected to ensure is that they have to get a proper stabilization of the situation. If the stabilization of the situation happens, to whatever the problem has been seen in the FPIs can be reduced to the larger extent. And here you have the basic details like what is the foreign investors, net sellers, and what is the current year's comparisons has been happening with it. So you can just look on to it. That's all about it. So you should know that the FPIs has also been affected with the fall in the Indian rupee and also with the external factors which have also been affecting in the larger. So this is about it. And the next news item, India to be the 11th wealthiest, says the BCG. So BCG is nothing but the Boston Consultancy Group. So here it is making India to be the 11th wealthiest nation according to its report by 2022, because right now India is with $3 trillion and it will become $5 trillion by 2022. So this is about the personal financial wealth. So based on this, now the Boston Consultancy Group has estimated that by 2022 India would be the 11th wealthiest nation. So this is about it. And here, according to the report, India is currently the 5th largest Asian market in terms of the number of the affluent, and the high net worth and ultra high net worth of the individuals would be taken into considerations, and the total number of such individuals have been pegged at 4.13 lakh in 2017. So here you have the categories to why do we call it as a high net worth and the ultra high net worth. So categorization, when we call about the ultra high net worth, we are talking about excess of $100 million. So anyone has an excess of $100 million as a wealth, he comes under the ultra high net worth, and between $1 million to $100 million, then they would be coming under the high net worth. So this is how they do the categorization. And here they were also talking about that 70% of the Indians who have been possessing with a personal financial wealth was in terms of the liquid assets such as equity, currencies, and the bonds. So most of them, they had it in terms of the liquid assets. And here the affluent, which has been referred with a wealth between 2,50,000 to 1 million dollars. So this is with respect to the affluent who would be under the ambit of this particular, lesser than this. So this is about it. And the global personal financial wealth has almost rose to 12% to 201.93 trillions in the dollar times. So this is almost like 2.5 times the world's gross domestic product for the year at the $81 of trillions. So this is about the comparisons with the global personal financial wealth. And here they were also talking about this, and highest annual growth rate in the past 5 years was largely because of the bull market environment. So this bull market environment has made the major economies and also strengthening most of the major economies against the dollar. So the bull market has actually led to the wealth in the equities and investments, which funds showing the strongest growth. So there's actually given that it is actually strengthening the other currencies when compared to the dollars, against the dollars. So investable assets, so here we have an almost 60% to, or we can call it as $121.6 trillion of the global wealth was in the form of an investable assets. So those would be like equities, investment funds, currency, deposit, bonds, with remaining 40%, that is $80.3 trillion were in a low liquidity assets, which was not ready for the liquidity. Those are the life insurance, pension funds, and equity in the unlisted companies. So here they're saying that investable funds and the ones which in what forms do we have it. So the overall growth of the global personal wealth has continued to be a momentum in 2017. So the residents of the North America had over 40% of the global personal wealth, which was being followed by the Western Europeans with 22%, and the strongest region of the growth was Asia, which has posted with 19% in increase. So they were almost seen 19% in terms of an increase. So this is what is a kind of a report to what the Boston Consultancy Group has given on the personal financial wealth, and India is to be as 11th wealthiest. So this is about it. It just shows the current status on the reports. That's it. And the question for the day is, you have to mention to what is a bull market, and secondly the functions of the election commission. So that's it for today, and these were the important news items for 9th of October 2018. Thank you.